Welcome. Scott here. Here is a quick boss guide for the upcoming Heretics event. Fluttering Eyes feature the returning 7 from Final Fantasy Type 0. The event synergy units are 7, Selphie, the Emperor and Garnet. 7 FR will be making its debut with her FR boards. 7 will be getting her rework. We will be fighting the Swarm Fly, which has 200 million HP. Throughout the fight, it will be accompanied by 2 small Swarm Flies which has 20 million HP each. All the enemies are weak against melee. The turn requirement is 65. The HP requirements is 10,000. Before I continue further, here is a small disclaimer clause for the video. The guide is written based on the time that the event was released for the Japanese version. Please do note that it is possible that the boss fight mechanics might differ when the actual event is released in global. Like most other Shinryu fights, the boss gains increased brave damage and gain resistances at start of the fight and 79% HP threshold. Bringing a support like Lunafreya, Charlotta, Aerith, Ramza, Yuna, Iroha, Pernello, Garnet, Selphie that grants damage boosting aura will make your fight easier. As the boss gains substantial boost to their defenses with the auras, it is important to inflict debuffs that lower their defenses. On the screen I have listed down the key utility that you can consider when forming your party for this fight. The boss has very strong defense stats and it will get even stronger during its angry state. You need to lower its defense down by using either debuffs or using ignore defense utility to bypass the defenses. As the boss is weak against melee attackers are recommended here. Examples are 7, Jack Garland, Tifa, 7, Pernello, Machina, Dark Knight Cecil and Titus. To cancel the boss force time, you need to deal its force weakness by inflict debuff that has 3 stacks and above. Other than 7, examples of units that inflicts these type of debuffs are Sync, Kurasame, Seymour, Fran, or even Jegran. The small swarm flies can battery the main boss with its tiny misbite and the main boss can battery the small swarm fly with rallying cry. This often resulting you need to handle massive pools of brave. It is either you bring utility that shave the brave or you minimize the brave damage from the bosses. Units that offer brave control debuffs are Setzer, Arsila, Waka, Maria, and Kater. Alternatively you can reduce the brave damage received with brave reduction buffs like Desh, Warrior of Light, Selphie, or Hope. 7's Bondage Whip offers gravity brave shaving on every turn taken. Thus, it also a good alternative to handle the mechanic. As a trend that we are approaching towards the FR Echo era, the boss has a massive pool of HP. So we can still go with the usual cover tanks of Orin, Golov, or Gladio, counter or follow-up units like Yang, Kor, Kane, Cisnei, Cloud of Darkness or Beatrix. Alternatively, you can make use of traps debuffs to negate the brave damage gain or counter the boss attacks. Examples are Minwoo, Celis, Yuri, the Emperor or Seiss. Unlike the previous fight, this fight don't have any threshold attacks so you can technically deny the boss turns and nuking them with the standard delay, launch and follow-up strategies. Beware of the boss strong defense though, but it shouldn't be a problem if you have the means to handle it. As we are no longer have Lufania Plus fights, the boss guide will be focused primarily on Shinryu fights. In Shinryu, you need to understand the effects gained by the boss as the force gauge build up, its force ability and its force time effect. If you don't bring any force chargers, it is highly certain that the boss force gauge will build up faster than yours. To have a better understanding on the basics of the force gauge mechanics and Shinryu fights, I have done a video explaining the mechanics. I have included the link to the video under the comments and video description for your quick reference. Throughout the fight, the boss has a permanent force gauge properties that lowers your party speed by 50%. This will result you see the boss often having more turns than your party. When the force gauge is at 50% or higher, the boss will apply another aura that will reduces your party turn rate by 50%. the boss force gauge will build up faster as its HP is lowered. You can refer to the table on the screen for the percentages. At the 100% threshold, the main swarm fly will use its force ability, Powder Stream ++++, which is a brave gain that equates to 30% of the boss current max brave, followed by an AoE brave attack. The boss will gain a buff that grants the party a 80% brave damage resistance for 5 turns. Upon using the force ability, the boss will enter into its force time where the gauge will start to emit a red hue with a counter of 6 on its gauge. When the force time is activated, the boss will gain the following enhancements where they are immune to KO. To deal force weakness on the boss, you need to use a melee force ability that inflicts a stacking debuffs with 3 or more, which is 7 FR. Likewise, any melee FR like DFFOO or Jack Garland will also works if you have inflicted the stacking debuff before they use the force ability. Examples of units that can inflict stacking debuffs are Sync, Karaseme, Seymour, and Fran. Now let's go through the fight key mechanics of the nodes. The boss has 2 phases, its angry phase and its calm down phase. It will be in angry phase during the following HP intervals: start of the fight to 60% HP threshold and 39% to end of the fight. It will temporarily disable the auras with its calm down phase, which lasts during the 59% to 40% HP threshold intervals. When it is angry stance, it will apply an aura field that raises the boss party speed and defense by 50%. The field will also reduce your party brave gains by 50%. As the boss has strong base defense stats, make sure you have means to lower its defenses. Applying defense down auras or using gravity shaving or defense ignore utility are some of the means to handle the brave gained by the bosses. 7's Bondage Whip and Selphie skills have gravity shaving utility, while the Emperor's LD has ignoring defense utility. Follow up, Brave Control, or Traps debuffs are good means in handling those massive brave gains. The main boss has a couple basic attacks like Venom Bite, Poison Hit and Aeroga that could inflict a generic poison debuff. However, you need to watch out when the main boss is targeting all. While it is targeting all, it will use Powder Stream ++, which is result the boss reset its break status, deals an AoE brave plus HP attack and inflicts 50% brave damage down debuff for 5 turns. When the force time is active, the swarm fly will always use Powder Stream +. Powder Stream Plus is a reset break status, brave gain followed by an AoE HP attack. Let's focus on its partner in crime. The small swarm fly will generate uses Tiny Misbite, which is a single target brave attack that inflicts 50% attack down debuff for 5 turns. All the brave hits dealt by the small swarm fly will battery the brave of the main boss. When any one of the small swarm fly are killed, the boss will use Rallying Crying, which will revive the small swarm fly or heal the surviving small swarm fly back to 100% HP, along with granting them brave that equates to 100% of their max brave. Make sure you have turns before the boss uses the Rallying Cry so you have means to handle those brave gain. Overall, this isn't a tough fight like the previous one. This stage does not have any threshold attack mechanics where you can simply focus on nuking the boss to death. In fact, the fight is more famous for JP players breaking their own personal burst damage records. So, you can have fun with it by stacking FR echoes during your force time. Before I end the guide, let's cover a bit on the featured FR unit. 7 is returning with a nice rework. She is a single target melee DPS with a potent snakebite debuff on whichever she targets. When her Bondage Whip buff is active, she can trigger Bondage Whip follow-up attacks, which will reduces all enemies brave by 400% of 7's attack and dealing split HP damage that equates to 400% of her attack stat. Bondage Whip follow-up will trigger on every turn even during burst phase, thus making 7 a viable follow-up attacker. Bondage Whip follow-up will scale with force time. Now let's briefly go through the force condition. 1. Attacking an enemy that has been inflicted with 7 snakebite debuff will give you 15% per 1 stack of the debuff. 7 snakebite can go up to 3 stacks, thus the maximum for this condition is 45%. 7 can reliably maintain the debuff with her LD and S1. Her FR will also inflict the debuff for 6 turn upon activation. 2. Dealing brave damage against single target will give you another 30% HP damage. On an initial look, this FR condition seems very restrictive, but actually it isn't. Other than 7, single target specialists like Tifa, Leo, and Sid Reigns will work well here. Units that deal single target brave hits with splash damage will also meet the conditions like Kurasame, Vaughn, Machina, Seymour, Titus, etc. Units like Jack Garland, Noctis, or Ash who deals AoE brave damage but with single target follow-up will also meet the condition. As long as you meet the conditions, you can easily meet the 75% HP damage bonus per turn. Make sure your unit is targeting the enemy unit that has been inflicted with the snake bite. It is not a bad FR, but with the forthcoming FR Echo units, 7 is weak compared to them, as all future FR Echo will come with burst weapon. Like Garnet, most JP users will also use her FR as an FR Echo attack instead of using it in the main FR phase. With this, I have come to the end of my boss guide presentation. Hopefully you find it useful. If you like the video, please give a like. Please subscribe to my channel for future gaming content. Good luck for the fight in the coming days. Bye.